You know, an ancient story about a real estate deal doesn't exactly sound thrilling, does it? But what if I told you that one single purchase, just a burial plot for a beloved wife, was actually this brilliant, strategic move to lock in a divine promise? Well, that's exactly the story we're diving into. We're going to see how a moment of pure grief became the very first tangible foothold in a promised land.
So it all kicks off with this single, really heartfelt plea. And listen to this. This isn't some powerful negotiator speaking from a position of strength. No, this is Abraham, a man without a country, without any land to his name. You can just feel the vulnerability in his words. He calls himself an outsider, a foreigner, and a sojourner, and he's just asking for the most basic human dignity, right? A place to bury his wife.
Okay, so to really get the weight of this moment, we've got to go back to the beginning. We need to understand the profound personal loss that really set this whole thing in motion.
Imagine this. After all these years, decades of journeying together, Sarah dies. Abraham is left alone, grieving, and now he has to bury her. But here's the kicker. There's a massive problem. God had promised him that this whole land, Canaan, would one day belong to his family. But right now, at this very moment, Abraham doesn't own a single square inch of it. Not one.
And to really grasp his situation, you have to understand this one word, sojourner. It's not just a fancy old-timey word. It meant he had no legal standing, zero property rights, no citizenship. He was basically living among the Hittites completely at their mercy, like a resident alien with absolutely no power.
And this is what makes the negotiation that comes next so absolutely fascinating. I mean, he has no leverage at all, and yet he goes to the ruling Hittites not just as a grieving husband, but as a man with a very specific and, let's just say, a pretty unusual plan up his sleeve. So the negotiation gets going, but right away, it takes this really surprising turn. The Hittites, they make what sounds like an incredibly generous offer. They're like, hey, take our best tomb. It's yours free of charge. But then, and get this, Abraham says no. He refuses. Instead, he insists on paying for a very specific piece of land. And that just raises this huge question, right? Why on earth would anyone turn down a free, top-of-the-line burial plot?
And right here, this is the core of his entire strategy. See, in that culture, a gift wasn't just a gift. It created a social debt. Abraham would have been forever obligated to the Hittites. But a purchase was a clean, final transaction. It created undeniable legal ownership. He wasn't just looking for a place to bury Sarah, he was looking for a permanent legal claim.
So Abraham steers this whole thing away from a gift and towards a sale. And Ephron, the owner of the land, names his price right there in front of all the city elders. And the price he names is, well, it's staggering.
400 shekels of silver.
Okay, let's put that in perspective. This was an absolutely astronomical price for a simple field and a cave. I mean, it was a total ripoff. But does Abraham try to bargain? Does he haggle? Nope, not for a single second. He immediately agrees and weighs out the silver, right there, in public. And that complete lack of hesitation, that's the key. Because you see, the crazy high price and the public payment, that was the whole point. By paying this insane amount in front of all those witnesses, nobody could ever come back later and dispute the sale. It was a brilliant, ironclad legal move to secure permanent ownership, totally free and clear. And this is where it all clicks into place. This brings us to the real meaning behind this whole transaction. This was never just about burying Sarah. It was about something so much bigger. It was about securing a foothold. And a foothold is the perfect word for it. It's a secure position you can use to make more progress. And that's exactly what Abraham did. For the very first time, he and his entire family line owned a piece of the promised land. Yeah, it was small, but it was legally and irrefutably theirs. Think about it. For years, Abraham had been living on this huge, divine promise, a promise of land, a promise of descendants, but it was all abstract, right? Just a promise. This purchase, this finally made that promise real, tangible. It was like the down payment on his future inheritance, a physical anchor finally dropped into the soil of his destiny. So let's break it down. What did this one super strategic and really expensive purchase actually secure for Abraham and all the generations that would follow him? I mean, it was so much more than just a burial plot. First, it was this massive act of faith. By burying Sarah there, he was basically declaring, this is our home, this is where we belong. It also created a tangible, physical symbol of hope for a promise that hadn't fully come true yet. And maybe most importantly, by setting that ironclad legal precedent, he made sure that this first, crucial foothold could never, ever be taken away.
And, that really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. Abraham took this moment of incredible grief and transformed it into a concrete physical step toward a future he couldn't even see yet. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In our own lives, what's our version of that? What small, tangible act of faith or investment can we make today that becomes a foothold for a long-term hope or a promise we're holding on to?